Sisters and brothers, 2.5 lakh DHFL depositors, pensioners, widows, physically challenged persons, and every honest Indian who still believes in justice, in the value of distributive justice. This video is your wake-up call. The DHFL scam is the biggest legalized loot in post-independent India's financial history. And this was done through IBC 2016. We will go into that through this video. But this video is not a neutral analysis. This video is a blazing expose and a battle cry against those who enabled this systemic legalized loot. Now today we tear apart the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, the IBC that I just spoke of. It was sold to us as a revolutionary tool to rescue companies, maximize creditor value, and clean up bad loans quickly. Introduced in 2016, it promised a time-bound corporate insolvency resolution process, CIRP. A distressed company goes to NCLT, a resolution professional takes over, a committee of creditors, the COC, calls the shots under the banner of their commercial wisdom. A bidding war starts between competing buyers who submit resolution plans. After votings and deliberations and meetings, one resolution plan or settlement proposal is selected and given the stamp of legitimacy. Hence, the company is either revived or liquidated to repay the creditors. Sounds more or less fair, reasonable on paper, isn't it? Now, let us go deeper into this. There is a rotten heart of the IBC, and that rotten core is basically the conflict or the contradiction between Section 66 and Section 32A of the IBC itself. Inside the same law sit two sections that directly contradict each other. Section 66, what is it? It is the anti-fraud weapon of the IBC. It targets directors and management who knowingly ran the company fraudulently or wrongfully to defraud creditors. The NCLT can order them to pay personally, and those recoveries go into the common pool for all creditors, public sector banks, retail depositors, everyone, without discrimination. Higher courts, including NCLAT, the Appellate Tribunal, have repeatedly said that Section 66 is meant to benefit the entire creditor body and maximize assets for collective recovery. But then came the silent killer, Section 32A, the so-called clean slate provision of the IBC. This Section 32A was inserted through an ordinance, ordinance, on 28th December 2019. It was later passed as law in March 2020. It was enacted in March 2020. But crucially, it was given retrospective effect from December 2019 itself. Now, what does this Section 32A say? Once a resolution plan is approved and control of the company shifts to new owners who are unrelated to the old promoters and not apparently complicit in the offences so committed pre-CIRP or during CIRP, the corporate debtor and the new owner gets complete immunity. No prosecution, no attachment of assets, no seizure, no confiscation for any past offences. The company is reborn spotless, a pristine, a pure prosecution-proof entity. The old promoters may still be chased in the court of law, but the company and its new owner, they walk away clean. Here, I am focusing on the explosive contradiction. Section 66 is saying recovered the fraud money so that all creditors benefit. Section 32A is saying wipe the company's criminal slate completely clean the moment ownership changes. Same legal entity, same assets, same branches, same employees, same infrastructure, same loan book, but all liability for the past sins, the old offenses that created the mess, they disappear. This is not justice at all. This is corporate metamorphosis, continuity of identity with total discontinuity of accountability. A legal Frankenstein engineered for impunity. Now, the DHFL case exemplifies this clearly. DHFL was India's first major non-banking housing finance company that was pushed into the IBC. It was a 91,000 crore AAA rated giant, not a Ponzi scheme, not a cheat fund, but a solid housing finance company serving millions of people. Now let us walk through briefly the timeline that tells the real story. On 28 January 2019, Ajay Piramal publicly warned of one or two major shocks in the NBFC sector. The very next day, mind it, the very next day on 29th January 2019, the Cobra Post expose on the DHFL scam alleged massive diversions at DHFL, including terror funding with the involvement of Dawood Ibrahim, Iqbal Mirchi and the BJP. Now let's move on to 20th November 2019, when RBI superseded the DHFL board of directors amid these massive fraud allegations that were coming in. On 3rd December 2019, NCLT admits DHFL into the CIRP under the IBC corporate insolvency resolution process, the first big financial services case under the IBC. Now just 25 days later, on 28 December 2019, the government promulgates the ordinance inserting section 32A with retrospective effect. Forensic audits later revealed around 45,000 crore in fraudulent diversions and wrongful trading, classic territory for Section 66 action. Now the ex-promoters of DHFL, the Wadhwan brothers, made multiple full repayment proposals during the CIRP, offers to repay every single creditor 100%. These were ignored under the so-called commercial wisdom of the COC. Now came a competing bidder, Oaktree Capital. They alleged bias of the COC in favor of Mr. Piramal, one of the other bidders. Oaktree Capital also offered higher recovery, but it was swept aside by the COC. On 19th May 2021, NCLT itself questioned the plan and asked the COC to reconsider the excluded settlement offers, full repayment proposals of the ex-promoters. The COC, led by Mr. Piramal, Union Bank of India, they rushed to the NCLT without answering the NCLT and got the NCLT order, stayed within 5 days. Like instant food, instant noodles, they got instant justice. But most of ordinary Indian citizens, their cases lag for years and decades. Now, on 7 June 2021, NCLT approved Piramal Capital and Housing Finance's resolution plan, PCHFL's resolution plan. In that plan, the 45,000 crore potential recoveries under Section 66 were valued at exactly 1 rupee. Remember this figure, 1 rupee for 45,000 crores. On 27 January 2022, NCLAT called this discriminatory, irregular and illegal and ordered the COC to reconsider so that recoveries could benefit all the creditors. But Piramal got scared maybe. He rushed to the Supreme Court immediately and got this NCLAT order, second order, stayed within a month or so, on 11th April 2022. But on 1st April 2025, Piramal got even more legitimacy. The Supreme Court of India upheld the entire Piramal plan that was named to be illegal in many aspects, contrary to law, with material irregularities. It was called as a valid document. And valid why? Because it stems from the so-called commercial wisdom of the COC. And the Supreme Court on 1st April 25, it overturned the NCLAT order that challenged the premises of the Piramal resolution plan. Now, what happened after that? through a reverse merger effective 30th September 2021, so just months after the NCLT's approval of Piramal's resolution plan, DHFL was already folded into Piramal's company. But now, after the Supreme Court stamp of legitimacy, Piramal Capital and Housing Finance Limited, PCHFL, was again rebranded. Again, it took in Piramal Enterprises Limited, it wore a new dress, a new makeup, and it became Piramal Finance. And as Piramal Finance, it doesn't care about any past offences before the CIRP or during the CIRP. This is a brand new entity with a clean slate, all thanks to Section 32A. Why? Because on 2nd February, my friends, 2026, this year, just 2 months from today, a Mumbai Special PMLA Court, Prevention of Money Laundering Act Court, discharged the Piramal Finance corporate entity from the entire 5,000 crore money laundering case that DHFL was involved in. Why? Because it explicitly cited Section 32A clean slate immunity. Now, Piramal's company works free. The institution is cleansed. Only the old promoters, the Wadhawan brothers, remain under massive scrutiny. Now, who won and who lost in this entire thing? While this entire process was going, 2.5 lakh small depositors of DHFL, many of them pensioners, physically challenged persons, widows, even widows of Indian Army personnel, many charitable institutions, philanthropic institutions with fixed deposit and NCDs, were forced to accept massive haircuts of 54% to 77% on their hard-earned life savings under the Piramal resolution plan. Many recovered as little as 23 paisa in the rupee, and not even that, I'm just saying figuratively, metaphorically. Public sector banks also took heavy hits. Today, Piramal Finance is thriving, this new entity that doesn't know any past sin, old offences. Assets under management have crossed 96,000 crores, up 23%. Their 9-month profit for FY26 stands at 1,000 crore, a staggering 162% jump. Piramal Finance has secured a fresh AA plus rating, but viewers never ever believe these ratings, these credit rating agencies, because they base themselves on the issuer pays model, the issuer being the corporate entity in question. Now, the massive upside from potential fraud recoveries of DHFL, it went straight to the new owner, Mr. Ajay Piramal, who predicted the NBFC sector shock just a day before the Cobra Post expose on the DHFL scam. Now let's go further into this. When victims and activists tried to ask basic questions through RTI, right to information, how much did the DHFL COC, the RBI appointed COC, spend on lawyers, consultants, travels and meetings? Who paid those bills? Were the costs deducted from the resolution pool that belonged to the depositors? What were the meeting minutes? What was discussed? How did they actually vote? Where are the voting records? Why were full repayment offers ignored? The responses to these RTI queries were shocking as hell. RBI, the very RBI that appointed the COC, it said we have no information. We were not privy to the COC minutes. IBBI and CAG passed the buck. Even Supreme Court did the same. Other authorities denied information, evaded information, or just transferred the queries from one department to another, from one ministry to another for months. And in the end, they said, we don't know. We have no information. Your query does not fall under RTI Act. But it does, evidently, and we can prove that again and again. And when victims refused to stay silent, they faced SLAPP suits, strategic lawsuits against public participation, SLAPP. And these were done by whom? Mr. Piramal, of course. He employed his legal team, DSK Legal, and made these defamation suits against whistleblowers of the OBMA and other pensioners, widows and activists. This is not a tool to seek justice, but to intimidate and silence criticism. Criticism based on publicly reported data. Now let us connect the dots. This was not a normal resolution. DHFL resolution was never a normal thing. This was engineered from day one. DHFL became a test case, to legitimize the entire IBC framework and save the face of the BJP-led government after the NBFC crisis. Now, Piramal entities, we have to keep this in mind, made massive electoral bond donations to the BJP and contributions to the ambiguous, dubious PM cares. Political and corporate proximity has been widely noted in the case of Mr. Piramal. He is the secondary kin of Mr. Mukesh Ambani, who is favored by the BJP, and Mr. Piramal himself was involved in the flashnet dealings, the flashnet scam with BJP Union Minister Piyush Goyal. Now, what happened after all of this? Really, let's take a moment. The losses were socialized onto the other 98%, the common people, the toiling people, the struggling middle class. The gains, the profits, they were privatized to the top 2% or the top 1% through a massive concentration of wealth that goes against the spirit of the Indian Constitution. Section 32A of the IBC was used to override Section 66 of the IBC. Rules were changed mid-game with retrospective effect. Fraud was laundered into legitimate profit through reverse mergers and clean slate immunity. Now, our clear and non-negotiable demands, hear them out loud. We, the victims and all justice-loving citizens, whistleblowers, demand immediate repeal of Section 32A, full enforcement of Section 66 so that every rupee recovered from fraud goes back to all the creditors. Scrap the entire IBC 2016 and make it from the beginning, from scratch, because it has failed the people of India till date. Reopen full criminal accountability. Conduct an independent forensic audit of every committee of creditors' decision in the DHFL case. Now claw back the loot. Provide full restitution to every single DHFL depositor. No more haircuts on life savings. No more harassment through slaps. Sisters and brothers, the time for silence is over. Rise up, wear black badges in protest, wear black masks, form human chains outside the RBI, IBBI, NCLT, Supreme Court, Parliament. Flood digital media. Flood digital media with the truth, with what you know, with what our OBMA has reported for all these years. Share this video widely. They erased the liability, they erased justice, but they will never erase our fight, which goes on. Scrap Section 32A, enforce Section 66, repeal the IBC, which is internally incoherent, which is ill-conceived. Justice for DHFL victims now. No more clean slates for dirty crimes by politically associated big corporate tycoons, the cronies. Return the people's money, oh cronies. Inqalab Zindabad, Satyagraha Amar Rahe, Larenge Ya Marenge, Satyameva Jayate. This is not just a video. This is the beginning, another beginning for our ongoing web-based non-violent civil disobedience movement. Share it, speak it, stand with us. DHFL victims will never be silenced. The truth will never be buried or blurred. Thank you. Justice for DHFL victims now.